You're sitting across from him and something feels off, but you can't name it. The conversation is fine. He's not being rude. He's not pulling away. But somewhere between the small talk and the silence, you feel yourself performing. You're watching your words. You're managing your tone. You're making sure you don't come across as too much, too intense, too emotional, too invested. And the worst part? You don't even notice you're doing it anymore. It has become automatic. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that being easygoing gets you further than being honest. You learned that asking for clarity can feel like pressure, that showing you care can feel like a risk, so you edit yourself. You wait to text back so you don't seem eager. You pretend you're fine when you're not. You laugh at things that sting. You hold back questions that deserve answers. And then you wonder why you feel exhausted in relationships that are supposed to feel like home. And here's the part that changes everything. Most women think they're protecting the connection by becoming easier, softer, smaller, lower maintenance. But male psychology reveals something that flips this completely. The very behaviors you think are keeping him close are often the same behaviors that make him feel emotionally safe to stay at a distance. Not because he's cruel, not because he's playing games, but because your self-abandonment signals something to his nervous system that you never intended. This is not about blaming you, my love. This is about awareness. Because awareness alone changes everything. You didn't invent these patterns. You absorbed them from a culture that told you being chosen is the goal and being too much is the crime. But here's the truth. The goal is not to become more palatable. The goal is to become more aware. So let's talk about 5 things you might be doing that push men away, and you probably don't even know you're doing them. Number 1, you manage his emotions before he even asks. This one is so automatic that most women don't even see it as a behavior. You sense a shift in his energy, and before he says a single word, you are already adjusting. Your voice gets softer. You don't bring up the thing that was bothering you. You ask if he's okay instead of saying what you need. You make sure the atmosphere feels safe for him, even when it no longer feels safe for you. And in the moment, it feels like love. It feels like being a good partner. It feels like emotional intelligence. But here's what's actually happening. You are absorbing the emotional labor of the entire dynamic. You are tracking his moods, managing your delivery, softening your needs, and creating a space where he never has to learn how to hold your feelings alongside his own. And here's the thing. Men do register this. Not consciously, but their nervous system learns, I can be however I am, and she will adjust. That is not a relationship. That is a one-person emotional management system. And over time, it doesn't make him respect you more. It makes him take you for granted, not because he's a bad person, but because you trained him that your comfort is negotiable. Instead of managing his emotions, practice stating your reality without softening it. I notice I'm holding back something I want to say and I want to share it with you. That sentence alone changes the dynamic from mothering to partnering. Number 2, you make yourself smaller, hoping he'll feel bigger. And this one breaks my heart because it comes from such a tender place. Maybe you dim your intelligence. Maybe you downplay your success. Maybe you stop talking about the things that make you proud because you noticed he gets a little quiet when you shine. Maybe you let him win arguments you should have won. Maybe you pretend not to know things so he can explain them. And you tell yourself it's not a big deal. It's just being gracious. It's letting him lead. But here's the warning. A man who needs you to shrink so he can feel confident is not a man who is ready for partnership. He is a man who is competing with you. And a relationship built on your smallness is not a relationship. It's a situation where you pay with pieces of yourself and call it love. The psychology here is painful but clear. When you consistently make yourself smaller, 2 things happen. First, you lose respect for yourself. Slowly, almost invisibly, until one day you don't recognize the woman who used to speak freely. Second, you attract men who are attracted to your smallness, not your fullness. And the men who would actually value the real you, they walk right past because they cannot see who you actually are. Instead of shrinking, try this. The next time you feel yourself holding back your full self, ask, am I making space for him, or am I erasing myself? Because those are not the same thing. Number 3. You chase the silence instead of observing it. His energy shifted. He went from warm to distant, from daily texts to every 3 days, from curious questions to one-word answers, and your instinct is to fix it. So you send the light-hearted message, then the concerned one, then the one that sounds calm but took you 40 minutes to write. You tell yourself you're communicating. You tell yourself you're being mature. But what you're actually doing is chasing clarity from someone who is currently withholding it. And here's the thing. When you chase a man's silence, you teach him 2 things. 1. Your emotional state is his to control. He goes cold, you get warm. He goes distant, you get closer. That is not communication. That is a power imbalance disguised as effort. 2. He never has to experience the natural consequence of his distance, which is your absence. You keep filling the gap he created, so he never has to feel what it's like to truly lose access to you. Now listen carefully. This is not about playing games. This is about preserving your dignity. Because a man who is emotionally available will notice the distance and close it himself. A man who is not will let you chase him forever and call it complicated. Instead of chasing, observe. Let the silence sit. Let him show you whether he will return on his own. His return tells you everything. Your chasing tells you nothing except how much anxiety you can tolerate. Number 4. You treat intensity like it's intimacy. He showed up strong in the beginning. The late-night conversations, the deep questions, the way he looked at you like you were the most fascinating person he'd ever met. He shared things he said he'd never told anyone. He made you feel chosen. And now, weeks or months later, he's inconsistent, hot and cold, here and gone. But you can't let go because you keep replaying the beginning. You keep thinking, but it felt so real. But he opened up to me. But we had something. And here's the part that changes everything. Intensity is not intimacy. Intensity is speed. Intimacy is depth. They look similar in the first few weeks, but they move in opposite directions. Intensity burns fast and leaves you confused. Intimacy builds slowly and leaves you safe. A man who gives you intensity without consistency is not bonding with you. He is activating your attachment system. Your brain releases the same chemicals during intense emotional highs that it does during actual danger. And then when the high disappears, your nervous system goes into withdrawal. That is not love, my love. That is intermittent reinforcement. And it is one of the most addictive patterns a human brain can experience. The test is simple. Does his presence feel consistent over time? Or do you only feel close to him in moments? Because a relationship that only exists in moments is not a relationship. It is a highlight reel your brain keeps replaying to avoid the truth of the rest of the footage. Number 5. You apologize for needing what every relationship requires. You want clarity. You want consistency. You want to know where you stand. You want to feel safe bringing things up without managing his reaction. You want emotional reciprocity. And these are not high-maintenance demands. These are the baseline requirements of any healthy adult relationship. But somewhere along the way, you learn to apologize for them. You say things like, I know I'm probably overthinking this. Sorry, I don't want to seem needy. I know you're busy, this is probably not a big deal. But here's the warning. When you apologize for your needs, you train people to treat them as burdens. You hand them the script that says, what I am asking for is optional. My comfort is negotiable. My peace is secondary. A man who is emotionally mature does not need you to apologize for wanting clarity. He doesn't need you to shrink your needs so they're easier to meet. He doesn't need you to perform low maintenance when what you really want is to be chosen fully, not partially. The right man will not make you feel like your standards are the problem. He may not always meet them perfectly, but he will never make you feel embarrassed for having them. Because here's the truth. You are not asking for too much. You are asking the wrong person. So let's bring this together. These 5 patterns, managing his emotions, shrinking yourself, chasing silence, confusing intensity for intimacy, apologizing for your needs, they all come from the same root. The belief that being chosen requires you to become easier. But the psychology tells us something different. The women men actually stay for are not the women who ask for nothing. They are the women who know what they need, who say it clearly, and who are willing to walk away from a man who cannot meet them there, not because they're angry, not because they're punishing, but because they have learned the most important lesson in love. A connection that requires you to become smaller is already breaking. So the next time you feel yourself editing who you are to keep a man comfortable, pause and ask yourself, am I protecting the connection or am I abandoning myself? Because the answer to that question will tell you everything. You do not need to become less loving to keep a man close. You do not need to become less intelligent, less opinionated, less honest, less everything. What you need is a man who has the emotional capacity to stay close when love becomes real. And my love, that man exists. But he cannot find you if you keep hiding behind the version of yourself you think is easier to love. If this video helped you see something you've been doing that you hadn't named yet, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because on this channel, we do not just talk about what men do. We talk about what it means, what it reveals, and how you protect your peace while staying soft. And if you want to understand the other side of this pattern, watch my last video next. It is about why men pull away the moment things get real, and the psychology behind it may completely change how you interpret his distance. Thank you for watching, my lovies, and I'll see you in the next video.